Okay, let's dig into this. So many of us want to become fluent in English, right?
Definitely.
But the sheer amount of stuff, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, gosh, it can feel completely overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely. Like staring up at a giant mountain.
Yeah, like trying to climb it in one go, impossible feeling.
That feeling, that overwhelm, it's so common.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's a major reason people just, get stuck or even give up entirely.
They look at the whole thing and just think, nope, can't do that.
Exactly.
But we've been looking at this really interesting source today. It's a blog post called One Daily Tip for English Fluency.
hmm
And it offers this, well, surprisingly simple idea, a different way than that mountain leap approach.
It really does. It kind of pushes back against the idea that you need these massive, intense study sessions to actually make progress.
Right.
The core concept from this source, it's all about the power of making really small, simple steps, like incredibly small,
But the key is doing them consistently.
every single day. That's the magic ingredient, apparently.
It feels almost counterintuitive, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, how can one tiny thing a day possibly add up to fluency?
Yeah, it seems too small.
So our deep dive today is really into that idea. Why does this one simple English tip a day approach, as the source calls it, why is it supposed to be so effective?
What are the benefits, according to the author?
Exactly. What are the practical benefits? And maybe most importantly, how can you actually, make this work for yourself?
Okay, let's unpack it.
So the central concept in the source, it uses a pretty classic analogy, but it fits really well here. It says learning English is like building a house.
Right, and the whole point of that is you don't build a house by trying to magically snap the whole thing together at once.
No,
You build it one brick.
one brick at a time.
Yeah, one brick at a time. It really highlights that cumulative effect.
Yeah.
How these small individual bits, when you add them consistently, they eventually create something really substantial.
Yeah, it makes so much sense when you put it like that, trying to lay all the bricks in one weekend.
Huh. Yeah, right?
That's that feeling of overwhelm again, isn't it? That's where the burnout comes from.
Absolutely. The source specifically points to setting goals that are just too big as maybe the primary reason people fail in language learning.
You just get exhausted.
Totally. Exhausted, demotivated, and then poof, you stop.
But just one simple English tip a day, the author argues that's where the real sustainability is, the power.
Right, because it feels doable.
Yeah.
It's such a low barrier to entry for your day.
Mm.
It doesn't demand hours you might not have.
Makes it easier to fit in even if you're super busy.
Exactly. It shifts the focus away from sheer intensity
Towards consistency.
towards consistency.
Yeah. And speaking of fitting it in, the source lists several specific benefits that come from this daily small step learning. What really jumped out at you from their list?
Well, one key benefit they really highlight is how it helps build long-term memory.
Okay.
When you engage with the language every day, even if it's just for a few minutes on one specific thing, you're constantly reactivating those pathways in your brain.
Keeping them fresh.
Yeah, reinforcing them. And that daily repetition, the source argues, is way more effective for actually remembering stuff than, say, one long cramming session once a week.
That makes sense. Like how you somehow know all the words to a song you haven't heard in years just from hearing it lots back then.
Exactly like that. And they also mention, this is a big one, how it significantly reduces stress and mental pressure.
Oh, I bet. Because you're not facing the whole mountain every day.
Right. It gets rid of that crushing feeling of, oh my God, I have to master everything right now.
Yeah.
By just focusing on one tip, the cognitive load is minimal. It makes learning feel less like a chore, more manageable.
And when something feels manageable and less stressful,
It's much easier to turn it into a habit.
bingo.
The source really positions it as making language learning just a natural, almost automatic part of your day, kind of like brushing your teeth or, I don't know, having your morning coffee.
It just becomes part of the routine, and that's key for sticking with anything long term. Plus, and I like this part, you get those little wins. Every single day.
Yes.
You learned a new idiom, you used that phrasal verb correctly, you understood a sentence someone said, those little hits of success.
Those daily successes are so vital for motivation. They give you that tangible proof. Hey, I'm making progress, even if it feels small. It reinforces the habit loop.
Okay, so the benefits are pretty clear. Less stress, better memory, builds the habit, keeps you motivated. But how do you actually do this in practice? The source has a suggestion they call a genius suggestion.
They do. And it's wonderfully simple. It's basically about keeping a dedicated notebook Or even just a digital file, whatever works for you. A one tip a day journal.
A journal. Okay. And the point isn't just to, like, list the tips, is it?
No, crucially, no. The key thing, according to the source, is that right next to writing down the daily tip, you immediately write one sentence using it.
Ah, so you have to apply it straight away.
Yes, it forces you to actively engage with it, to move it from just passive knowledge, oh, I read that tip, to active usage. Okay, how do I actually use this?
That's the application piece. That's where it sticks. And the source gives some examples, right, from like a 30-day challenge list.
Yeah, they list a bunch.
Can you share a few, just to give us a flavor of how simple these tips actually are?
Sure. And they're really designed to be totally actionable and, as the source puts it, build that natural fluency without all the usual stress. So, for instance, one day's tip might just be use a phrasal verb.
Okay, like instead of saying continue, maybe use keep on.
Exactly. And your journal entry might be something simple like, I need to keep on practicing my English. Boom, apply.
Simple.
Got it.
Huh?
Another day might be speak out loud daily by reading English sentences. The source makes a good point that reading silently doesn't actually train your speaking muscles.
That's a really good point, actually. We read silently all the time, but speaking is physical.
Yeah.
What about idioms? Are they in there?
Yep. Maybe day 3 is. Learn just one idiom. For example, break the ice, for starting a conversation.
Right.
Then you'd write your sentence. At the party, I decided to break the ice by asking about his trip.
These really are small, focused actions. What about listening or other skills? Does it cover those?
Yeah, there's a tip about watching a short, like 2-minute English video. Importantly, on a topic you actually like.
Makes it less of a chore.
Exactly. And the suggested practice is pausing, repeating what you hear, and shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, so imitating the speaker's pronunciation and rhythm.
Yeah, either right after them or even trying to speak along with them. It's great for flow and pronunciation.
And doing that with short videos makes it feel less daunting. I can see that.
Definitely. Other tips are even simpler. Like day 5 might be use the word because in every conversation.
Just because?
Just because. The idea is simply to practice extending your sentences naturally. So instead of I like pizza, you say I like pizza because it's delicious. It's not about complex grammar, just adding that simple connector word.
That's actually brilliant. It encourages longer sentences without needing to know complex structures. Simple, but effective. And didn't the source mention changing your phone language?
Yes, that's another one. Like day 9, change your phone language to English. Suddenly, every notification, every menu becomes a tiny passive learning moment. You're forced to interact with it.
That's immersion on a small scale. And day 10 was talking to yourself for just 2 minutes.
Yep. Talk to yourself in English for 2 minutes. Could be while you're walking, looking in the mirror, just thinking through your day out loud in English. It takes away the pressure of speaking to another person, but still gets you activating those speaking skills.
Gets the words flowing. And learning synonyms, like finding other words for good.
That's another great example. Learn alternatives like great, amazing, fantastic, superb. It immediately expands your vocabulary for expressing things with minimal effort for that one day.
Yeah, makes your speaking richer.
And the source even suggests another genius suggestion, using sticky notes around your house or setting phone reminders for the daily tip, just to keep it visible and top of mind.
Little nudges throughout the day. Okay, this is all sounding very practical.
Now, beyond just the benefits, the source really tries to explain why this specific method helps you stay consistent, especially when so many other approaches often fail.
And they circle back to that idea of setting goals that are just too big, too overwhelming.
Right, that's the main culprit they identify. When the goal feels massive, your brain kind of gets tired just thinking about it. It drains your motivation before you even begin. It feels like a huge weight.
But one simple tip that feels light, easy. The source claims it's stress-free and actually gives you energy because you're not dreading this big, awful task.
Exactly. And this leads to that really crucial emotional benefit the source emphasizes. You start feeling proud of yourself. Every single day.
Because you did the thing.
You did the thing. You see that sentence you wrote in your journal? You notice yourself using a new phrase, maybe? You see actual, tangible growth, however small.
And that feeling, seeing that progress, successfully doing the small daily task, that builds confidence, doesn't it?
Massively. The source actually calls confidence the absolute secret sauce to fluency.
Secret sauce.
Yep.
I like that.
It's a great way to put it. Because it's not just about knowing the rules or the words. It's having the guts, the confidence to actually use the language. And those small daily wins build that confidence layer by tiny layer.
Okay, so it builds skills and the confidence to use them. Now, the source also zooms out a bit, looks beyond just the language skills themselves, and talks about the wider impact fluency can have on your life. What kind of things do they mention?
They list some really significant life changes. Uh, Better job opportunities, for one.
It makes sense.
The author argues that speaking English fluently helps you gain respect, build trust in professional settings, which can really open doors career-wise.
Especially in today's global world, yeah.
Yeah.
And travel.
Yes, the freedom to travel more easily, to navigate and connect with people in so many countries where English is used.
Right.
Building global relationships is another big one they mentioned. Connecting with people from totally different cultures becomes much, much easier.
And wasn't there a cognitive benefit mentioned too, like for your brain?
Absolutely. The source notes that the actual process of learning a language is like a workout for your brain. It can improve your memory, sharpen your focus, skills that are useful everywhere in life.
So the source is framing these not just as, I can speak English now, but almost as enhanced life skills.
Exactly. Skills that unlock new possibilities and experiences.
It puts the whole goal of learning English into a much bigger and honestly probably more motivating context.
Precisely. It answers the "why am I doing this" question more deeply.
Okay, so we get the concept, the benefits make sense, we have practical examples, and we understand the why behind its effectiveness and the bigger picture impact. But how do you keep it going? Day after day after day. Motivation definitely waxes and wanes.
Yeah, the source is realistic about that. They really stress that consistency comes from having a system, not just relying on motivation, which, let's face it, is unreliable. It comes and goes.
Motivation gets you started, a system keeps you going.
That's the idea. Motivation is the spark, the system is the engine.
So what kind of system elements did they suggest putting in place?
Well, things like setting a specific timer for the same time each day, that helps create a routine, a trigger.
Like, okay, 7 p.m., time for my English tip.
Exactly. Using an app can help too, whether it's a language app like Duolingo, or maybe Anki for spaced repetition flashcards, or even just your phone's notes app for that daily journal entry. Something to provide structure.
A practice buddy could work too, right? For accountability.
Definitely. Having someone to check in with, maybe share your daily tip or sentence with, that adds a layer of social commitment. Makes you less likely to skip it.
Makes sense.
And rewarding yourself. After hitting certain milestones, like maybe completing 7 days in a row, give yourself a small reward. It reinforces the positive habit.
Like training your brain with positive feedback. And they had one more tip, right? For when you feel like giving up, an emotional one.
Yes, they suggest pausing in that moment of doubt and asking yourself, really asking, how will my life actually improve if I speak English fluently?
Connecting back to those bigger life impacts we talked about.
Exactly. Remembering the bigger why, the travel, the job, the connections can help reignite that internal drive when the daily grind feels tough.
That ties it all together really nicely. Okay, one last crucial point the source emphasizes is about mindset. Focusing on progress, not perfection.
Oh, this is so vital. The author makes a point to remind us that even native speakers make mistakes all the time.
True.
The goal isn't some impossible standard of flawless, immediate fluency. It's about steady, consistent improvement, seeing yourself get a little bit better each day, each week.
And they even suggest a kind of timeline, right? What you might start noticing.
Yeah, it's just a suggestion. Of course, everyone's different, but based
Yeah.
on consistently doing just that one tip a day,
Hmm?
they say after about 7 days, you might just feel noticeably more confident.
Okay, a week in, feeling a bit better.
Then maybe after 14 days, 2 weeks, you might find yourself naturally starting to use some of the new expressions or sentence structures you've been practicing in your journal.
They start creeping into your active vocabulary.
Exactly. And then after a full 30 days,
A month of consistent daily tips.
the source suggests that's when you'll likely really start to sound and feel more fluent. You'll experience that cumulative effect of those 30 individual simple steps adding up.
It really reinforces the idea that you're not just, ticking boxes, learning English words. You are actively building towards a future where fluency is just part of who you are and how you navigate the world.
Well said.
So, to wrap up this deep dive then, the core takeaway from the source seems pretty clear. Getting fluent in English doesn't have to be this huge, scary, overwhelming project that requires massive, painful effort.
Not at all. It's really about embracing the power of consistency, doing small, simple, manageable things, but doing them every single day. One tip, one small step, one sentence, using it day after day,
Brick by brick.
brick by brick.
The source really makes a compelling case for just starting today. Grab a notebook or open a file and just pick your first tip.
It makes you think, doesn't it? Consider the simple, almost deceptively small power of committing to just one tiny change today. What could the cumulative impact of that single daily step, if you practice it consistently, actually be on your fluency? And maybe, as the source suggests, even on your life in just 30 days from now. Which specific tip we talked about maybe resonated most with you as a potential starting point, something to mull over?